All right, ladies, we are continuing on in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, Working with Others, page 91. When your man is better, the doctor might suggest a visit from you. Though you have talked with the family, leave them out of the first discussion. Under these conditions, your prospect will see he is under no pressure. He will feel he can deal with you without being nagged by his family. Call on him while he is still jittery. He may be more receptive when depressed. See your man alone if possible. At first, engage in general conversation. After a while, turn the talk to some phase of drinking. Tell him enough about your drinking habits, symptoms, and experiences to encourage him to speak of himself. If he wishes to talk, let him do so. You will thus get a better idea of how you ought to proceed. If he is not communicative, give him a sketch of your drinking career up to the time you quit, but say nothing for the moment of how that was accomplished. If he is in a serious mood, dwell on the troubles liquor has caused you, being careful not to moralize or lecture. If his mood is light, tell him humorous stories of your escapades. Get him to tell some of his. So this becomes a fine art. But first, we're going to go back up top to that without the family, which was Helen was briefly touching on it before the meeting. The family will come across as nagging, and you don't want to be included in that, or he won't be receptive to you. Because his family has probably told him a million times that he's a drunk, he's a loser, he's got to fix it, he's got to get sober, all those things our families say, which tend to not be very supportive. So we want to be separate of that. And then in that second paragraph, it talks about how to talk to him. And this becomes an art, like I say. You get to know the cues that you listen for in what they're saying to be able to gain their confidence. We've read that previously, is an alcoholic can gain the confidence of another alcoholic in a few hours. Like I've said previously, I can do it pretty quick. And that's because I'm listening for those cues and I'm going to relate my experience to his so he knows I know what he's talking about. Or she. I use he because the book uses he. So this is what we're trying to do. We're just trying to gain their confidence so they're like, oh yeah, she gets me. She gets me. Oh yeah, me too, right? And that's what we're listening for, cues of what they say to us so we can repeat back to them our story and they go, oh, she gets me. She gets me. And they also can say, oh, she gets me. And then when we identify ourselves as alcoholic, they go, oh, maybe I am too. Joanne? No? Nothing to say. Okay. Bev?
No,
No.
it's from before.
Okay, sorry guys. Marianne! Third time's a charm.
Hi friends, I am an alcoholic from Toronto. My name's Marianne. I have a question. How long is it that you let them go on about their woes with drinking before you pick up the thing to identify with? Like, I always feel like I'm either too fast or I'm just listening to, the problems and
Yeah.
your advice.
You tend to, at the beginning when you start doing this, you tend to be a dumping ground, but you get to the point where, like, I can't listen to it forever. I let it go on for a little bit until I get enough of the picture that I relate it to, and then I cut them off and I'm like, oh yeah, blah, 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 and tell a story of me, and they go, oh yeah, so that you get to direct the conversation more, because we alcoholics, we love to talk about ourselves. And if you're a drunk alcoholic or a suffering alcoholic, you really like to talk about yourself because you're 100% in self. So, they'll go on forever and they'll tell you every problem they have. And I just let them go enough that they feel like they've been heard and I've got enough information to talk my story. And it becomes a fine art. I was a doormat for like the first bit of working with others because I hadn't perfected that and I didn't want to hurt people's feelings. I'm beyond hurting people's feelings. I want to save people's lives and carry this message. So I let them feel validated in that I've heard enough of their story and that I can rightly relate it back to them with my experience to gain their trust. Anybody else? All right, let's keep reading. When he sees you know about the drinking game, commence to describe yourself as an alcoholic. I like that sentence a lot because a lot of us get sent to addictions counselors or therapy and stuff like that, and we talk about our stuff and people don't relate it back to us, where we can say, oh yeah, me too. Tell him how baffled you were, how you finally learned that you were sick. Give him an account of the struggles you made to stop. Show him the mental twist which leads to the first drink of a spree. We suggest you do this as we have done in the chapter on alcoholism. If he is alcoholic, he will understand you at once. He will match your mental inconsistencies with some of his own. So now we're starting to give them a little bit of how we struggled to stop or how we wanted to stop, but we couldn't. So, we kind of give them those examples of, I would go out on the Friday night and I would say I was only going to have 2 drinks. And then I found myself, completely loaded, dancing on the bar topless. Or, I tried to say I was going to quit more times than not, but I kept picking up and I didn't know why. Or all of those Christmases where I was just going to have a glass of wine while I wrapped the presents while my kids were at their dad's, and I got so loaded I forgot to pick my kids up. So we're dropping hints of step 1 and the malady and the allergy, but we're not saying, yep, I've got this allergy, where if we're relating a story which encompasses the allergy and a story which encompasses the malady of the mind. So you can do that without talking like the doctor's opinion. So you're just saying, yeah, there was all these times in the morning where I was so hungover and I said, I'm never, ever, ever going to drink again. And, I promised my family I was never going to drink again. And there I was drinking again. I had no explanation. And then they were like, yeah, me too. And then you say, yeah, I would say I was never going to drink red wine, but I was only going to drink white wine because I get crazy when I drink red wine. And then the white wine would be gone, so I'd be drinking the red wine and I'd be nuts again, chasing my boyfriend's car down the street. I like to use humor. I find humor's really good when I make fun of myself and I'm talking about it. They rightly relate to it. And Marie.
Yeah, I like when I read the what is it? The questions, the 12 questions. I've done this for 15 years, and I always get people who do, oh yeah. The first one, have you ever tried to stop drinking for a couple of weeks and only lasted 2 days? I read it thusly. Have you ever tried to stop drinking one evening and only lasted 15 minutes? Because that was my experience. And I've had a lot of people nod going, yep, I understand that. Because that was me. Just thought I'd share that.
Thank you. I loved the questions at first as well, but my alcoholic brain told me everybody did too, because everybody around me did too. So I stopped using them because I could convince myself I wasn't alcoholic through those questions, because everybody else I knew drank and missed work and called in sick. So I was like, well, they're not, I'm not. So I like to use my personal story because then they rightly relate to it. Anyone else have experience on that wants to share? All right, keep going. If you are satisfied that he is a real alcoholic, begin to dwell on the hopeless feature of the malady. Show him from your own experience how the queer mental condition surrounding that first drink prevents normal functioning of the willpower. Don't, at this stage, refer to this book unless he has seen it and wishes to discuss it. And be careful not to brand him as an alcoholic. Let him draw his own conclusion. If he still sticks to the idea that he can still control his drinking, tell him that possibly he can, if he's not too alcoholic. But insist that if he is severely afflicted, there may be little chance he can recover by himself. Continue to speak of alcoholism as an illness, a fatal malady. Talk about the conditions of body and mind which accompany it. Keep his attention focused mainly on your personal experience. Explain that many are doomed who never realize their predicament. Doctors are rightly loath to tell alcoholic patients the whole story unless it will serve some good purpose. But you may talk to him about the hopelessness of alcoholism because you offer a solution. You will soon have your friend admitting he has many, if not all, the traits of the alcoholic. If his own doctor is willing to tell him that he is alcoholic, so much the better. Even though your protege may not have entirely admitted his condition, he has become very curious to know how you got well. Let him ask you that question if he will. Tell him exactly what happened to you. Express the spiritual feature freely. If the man be agnostic or atheist, make it emphatic that he does not have to agree with your conception of God. He can choose any conception he likes, provided it makes sense to him. The main thing is that he be willing to believe in a power greater than himself, and he be lived by spiritual principles. So here you have triage. Right here in the big book. 1, 2, 3. They started out with a casual conversation. Tell me your problems. I'll tell you mine. Then I switched into talking about the allergy and the malady in a general way through using my story to get him to get to that point where he agrees that maybe he's alcoholic. Then we start talking about alcoholism as an illness, and we stress that a little bit more. So we talk a little bit more technical about alcoholism specifically. First, we started with stories to rightly relate. So he goes, yep, this girl knows what I'm talking about. So we got his understanding. Then we get him to where we talk about ourselves as an alcoholic through stories. And he's like, oh yeah, me too. So now we start to talk about alcoholism as a disease. So we're transitioning him slowly in that one conversation. Now we're talking about how I got better. And I'm talking about God. Step 3. 1, 2, 3 in 3 paragraphs. It's a fine art. It takes practice. Talk to a shit ton of newcomers. It's the only way you're going to practice. Right? People are like, oh, I'm scared to work with others. Well, don't be. We have a solution. It's in a book. It's easy. It's a formula. It's numbered. And it's going to keep you sober. What they do with the information is up to you. If they like it and they want it, they're going to want it bad. I wanted it so bad. Like, I researched stuff. I got a bunch of people because I couldn't find somebody to take me through the book. And I was like, I want this. I want what you have. Give it to me. Where can I find this information? If they are hopeless and they want it, they're going to get it. If they're not, well, let them wait till they're ready. There's nothing you can do to change it. All right. Anybody else? Suzanne?
Hello? Hello?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. No, go first. It's okay, Suzanne. I'll go second.
Is that me?
Yeah, that's you.
Good morning, Prince George. I just have a quick question. 10 days ago, I basically told my family I was in Alcoholics Anonymous and that I was an alcoholic. And they had no clue. So now they're coming from out of town tomorrow to have a family meeting on Friday about this. And I am panicking. I'm talking to my sponsor. I'm deep breathing. But I know it's 1 minute at a time. I know that. But the closer they get, it's every time they come, it's a big panic.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm going to give you one piece of advice. And I'm going to also tell you something really, I think, from the heart. Piece of advice, just be honest. Be honest. There's nothing to be afraid of if you're honest. And they're coming because they love you. And they want to support you. And the best thing you can do is let them love you and support you and be honest. And you're on your way.
Thank you so much, Kimberly.
You're welcome. And you got us. We're here too. And if anybody says anything bad, that's their problem, not your problem. You're here getting well, and that's the most important thing. But they're all coming because they love you and they want to support you. So nothing to be afraid of there. Just be honest and accept the help. Because the number one thing we do is we don't be honest and we don't accept help. And then guess what? We're by ourselves, afraid of being alone. Suzanne?
Great. I just wanted to mention the willpower and the denial. I'm just reading this book called Never Enough by Judith Brisel. And she says we have what is called a cognitive dissonance. So it's part of the denial engine, which means that when behavior and your thinking don't jive, the expedient solution is to change our mind. why would I hurt myself? Because that makes no sense. So therefore, I must not be hurting myself with alcohol. So that when you get past that dissonance and into sobriety, then you can work with the alcoholic. If they're still saying, well, I don't upset you, I don't want to bug you to work with me, they're not ready. So I find that that's a huge, I have to intellectualize everything as well before I can go to my spiritual part of my heart. It's just how I think. So I have to hang on to those definitions. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. I'm going to apologize real quick, ladies. You know me, I stopped. So I'm just going to stop the recording for a quick sec.